Hello, my name is Andy Malcolm with Performance Course. Today we're going to discuss a little bit about mobility and stability. And for the most part we're going to cover stability because that is a precursor to any type of strength or resistance training that we do with our athletes. Strength is defined as the ability to produce force or to produce movement, and stability would be defined as the ability to control that force or that movement. So we first want to be able to control force or movement before we learn how to produce that force or that movement. So that is of utmost priority to us, is to focus on stability before we do any type of resistance training. And then towards the end we'll get into a little bit of mobility, but stability is a precursor also to mobility. So we're going to cover that mostly. Another definition of, our most basic definition of stability is to be able to maintain one's spine stiff or rigid. We like to refer to it as having a rigid torso, or to maintain stiffness throughout the torso. Gray Cook, by definition, would also like to throw in, I've heard him say that definition, but he'll add in while limbs are moving. So his definition of stability would be to maintain one's spine stiff or rigid while body parts are moving. So as you have limbs moving, you're able to maintain stability in the trunk or the torso. Because the core, we define the core as being the source of power, we want to spend a lot of our time focusing on core stability before we move on to any type of resistance or strength training. So at this time we're going to do some demonstrations, some basic to intermediate, and then move on to a few advanced exercises or movements that support core stability. So at this time I'm going to call in Derek with Performance Course. He's going to help me out with being my demo man. The first thing we're going to do is called an ab bridge, or sometimes we refer to it as a plank. So we're going to get in somewhat of a push-up position, except we're going to be on our elbows instead of our hands. So our toes are on the ground, and our elbows are on the ground, and our forearms are flat on the ground. What we're looking for in the stability here, the trunk stability, is for him to be able to maintain this position without any sagging of the hips or without having to raise his hips to maintain this position. So we want him to be nice and flat, just like a board or a plank is why we call it that. A couple key tips in this when working with athletes on this position. You can talk about their base or their feet, the width of their feet. The wider they move their feet, the more support they have in their base. The more narrow their base is, the less support they have, so that's going to put more pressure on the core to do the stabilization of the body. From here, now if you want to add in Gray Cook's definition of core stability, we can simply ask the athlete to raise his left foot off the ground for 6 inches. Okay, so now we're moving limbs as we're maintaining a stiff spine. So that's good core stability right there. You can put your leg down. You can actually relax for a minute if you want. The next thing we're going to do is called a pillar position, which is our basic fundamental push-up position. If you want to go ahead and get in the push-up position. Hands are directly underneath the shoulders. Feet, he's got a good base, foundation right there with his feet. And as you can tell, his spine is flat. It's not rounded. He's not raising his hips up in the air, and he's not sagging. So he's got a good plank pillar position right here on his hands. So again, we can ask the athlete, we can add in some limb movements. We could do a simple shoulder tap and ask the athlete to raise his right hand and touch his left shoulder, alternating touch his right shoulder with his left hand. We can have him raise one foot off the ground, put it down, raise the other foot off the ground. So now we're adding in another level of difficulty, making it a little more advanced, but it's still somewhat of an intermediate, basic core stability exercise. Okay, you can relax again. All right, to progress a little more, make this a little more advanced stability and mobility exercise, we can start with an inchworm. Simple inchworm is we're just going to grab our toes. Slight bend in the knees is okay. We're going to maintain our legs where they are. We're not going to squat or bend the knees. We're going to keep our arms locked out. We're going to take small baby steps with our hands and walk it out into a push-up position. And then, of course, we call this our pillar. We got a nice, stiff, rigid spine. And from here, a combo would be we're going to throw in some mobility exercises. So for example, hip mobility, We might do a combination inchworm, he just did, into a Spider-Man. So then we would have the athlete do Spider-Man with his left foot, taking his left knee, driving it up to his left elbow, trying to get his foot up there above his hand. That's good hip mobility right there. And we're showing core stability because we're maintaining a good plank position, pillar position, spine is stiff and rigid during that movement. And we've already demonstrated shoulder taps. That's another thing that you could add in with your inchworm combos. On the Spider-Mans, you can either do all one leg consecutive, say for 10 reps, or you can have them alternate going from left to right. It's just your preference on that. So that's basically it in talking about core stability and a little bit of mobility exercises. Thanks for watching.